They were just trying to get away from the city. After months of non-stop work, Zoe convinced her friends to rent a secluded cabin deep in the Pacific Northwest. It was a kind of place without cell service, where fog clung to the pine trees, and the only sound was the wind. They arrived on a Friday. Zoe, Caleb, Riley, and Marcus, college friends, all pushing 30, all craving a break from adult life. The cabin was beautiful in a worn, rustic kind of way. A single road led to it, winding like a snake through the forest. No other homes in sight. It had a fireplace, a loft, a deck that looked out over a still, dark lake, and a cellar that was locked. Riley joked about the place being haunted. "This is where the slasher movie starts," she said, filming with her phone even though there was no signal. The caretaker, a gaunt old man named Vernon, met them at the door. He had keys, dry jokes, and warnings. Don't go out to the lake at night, and don't open the cellar, even if you find the key, especially if you find the key. He didn't explain further, just tipped his hat and disappeared down the trail, leaving dust and dread in his wake. That night, around 2:13 a.m., Zoe woke up to a sound, a whisper, faint, close, just behind the walls. She sat up in the bed, breath frozen, and strained to listen, but there was nothing. The next morning, she told the others. They laughed it off, but then Caleb found a key beneath a loose floorboard, an old iron key, to the cellar. They shouldn't have gone down there, but curiosity doesn't care about warnings. Caleb, ever the skeptic, said it was probably just storage. Zoe hesitated. Marcus encouraged it. Riley filmed the whole thing. The door creaked open like something from a nightmare. The air below was cold. Not basement cold, grave cold. The steps groaned. The light didn't work, so they used flashlights. The cellar was wrong. It didn't feel like a room. It felt like a wound. Stone walls lined with shelves that held things, jars of something thick and red, a child's shoe, a broken crucifix. In the center, a wooden chair chained to the floor. Riley backed away. Marcus made a joke, but Zoe couldn't move. Her eyes locked on a wall covered in scratches. Deep, frantic. That night, the whisper came again. Closer, clearer. "Let me out." Zoe sat up. Caleb was already awake. He heard it too. So did Riley. So did Marcus. No one laughed now. They locked the cellar again, buried the key, but the house had changed. Shadows stretched longer than they should. Doors creaked open by themselves. At exactly 2:13 every night, the whispers began. "Let me out." Zoe began dreaming of a woman in the cellar, pale, bloody, smiling. Then Marcus vanished. He went out to the deck at night, said he needed air, never came back. They searched the forest, the lake, nothing, just his shoes pointed toward the water. And then the cellar door was open. Zoe didn't remember falling asleep, but she woke in the cellar. The chair in the middle was empty, the chains broken. The whispers were everywhere now, in the walls, in the mirror, in her skin. Caleb and Riley were gone. She found Riley's phone on the stairs, screen shattered. Her last video was 30 seconds of static, and then a face, grinning, upside down. Zoe ran into the forest, toward the road. But the road was gone. The forest didn't end. Time twisted. Daylight never came. She saw Vernon, the caretaker, standing in the trees. But when she blinked, he was a corpse, swinging from a noose made of roots. She screamed. Back at the cabin, something waited. It wasn't human. It wore a smile too wide, eyes too black. It spoke in Marcus's voice. Caleb's voice. Her own voice. "You let me out." Zoe locked herself in the bathroom, wrote everything she could on the mirror with lipstick, carved warnings into the floor. The last thing she heard was laughter, childlike, echoing from the cellar. They found the cabin months later. Empty, no sign of Zoe, just a mirror smeared in red. "Let me out." It was the deal of a lifetime. Trent and Lisa Matthews had been hunting for a home in upstate New York. Everything was too expensive, until they found the house on Bremer Lane. It was massive. 5 bedrooms, wraparound porch, a view of the valley, and dirt cheap. There's got to be a catch, Trent said. He was wrong. There wasn't a catch. There were several. The realtor didn't give much info, just smiled too wide and warned, "Don't cover the mirrors. They're part of the structure." Lisa thought it was weird. The house had mirrors in every room, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Some old and dust-covered, others pristine. But they shrugged it off. Artists used to live here, maybe? They moved in that weekend. The first night, Lisa saw someone behind her in the mirror. A flash, a pale face. She turned. No one. The next morning, one of the upstairs mirrors cracked. A long split down the center, as if from the inside. That night, they both heard it. A tapping from inside the walls. And when Trent looked in the mirror above their bed, his reflection didn't move. By the second week, they'd stopped looking in the mirrors altogether. Lisa complained of headaches. Trent started sleepwalking, always toward the largest mirror on the ground floor, the one framed in black oak, taller than a man. One night, Lisa woke to find him standing there, staring, mumbling something. She called his name. He didn't turn. Then his reflection smiled. But Trent didn't. The next day, Lisa demanded answers. She found an old shoebox buried in the attic, filled with newspaper clippings, local disappearances, all traced back to the house, all within the last 40 years. None solved. She dug deeper. Found a name, Eleanor Bright, a psychic. She visited the house in 1989 and went mad 2 days later, scribbling warnings in red ink. "They don't live in the mirrors." "We do." Lisa told Trent they needed to leave. He agreed, then asked, "Which one of us are you talking to?" She turned and realized her reflection hadn't moved in 10 seconds. They tried to leave. Every door led back inside. Windows showed different skies. Trent smashed a mirror in the foyer and vanished in the explosion of glass. Lisa screamed, but no one heard. The house changed after that. Rooms rearranged. Stairs led nowhere. Mirrors pulsed with black liquid. And Lisa wasn't alone anymore. There were others, reflections that stepped out. Pale, perfect copies with dead eyes. They whispered her name, promised answers. One of them looked just like Trent. He told her the house was a gate, that every mirror was a door, that they needed a trade to open them. Lisa refused, hid in the basement, scrawled her story in a notebook, every page a plea. Don't trust the mirrors. Don't follow the reflections. If you see yourself blink, run. When they found the house years later, it was empty. No sign of Lisa, just shattered glass, and one final message etched on the largest mirror. "We made it through. Your turn." Dr. Marla Grant arrived at Blackridge Asylum on a snowy December morning. The psychiatric facility, hidden deep in the Pennsylvania woods, had been closed since the late 90s following allegations of unethical treatments, but a private medical group had recently reopened it as a rehabilitation center for criminally insane patients. Marla was hired as a new forensic psychiatrist, replacing a doctor who vanished mid-shift 2 weeks ago. The staff were courteous but distant. Orderlies avoided the East Wing. Patients whispered about the woman in room 6. Even though that room was officially sealed, Marla dismissed it as institutional myth until the second night. While reviewing case files, she heard a voice behind her. "Why did you come back?" She turned. No one. Security footage showed her standing alone. That same night, the name Eleanor appeared carved into her office door. She hadn't told anyone her mother's name. Driven by curiosity and growing dread, Marla requested access to the East Wing. Denied. "It's under reconstruction," said the director. She found a back passage through the archives. The East Wing was untouched. Dust-covered beds, peeling walls, restraints still bolted to chairs. Yet, someone had lit candles in room 6. She stepped inside. The temperature dropped. Her breath fogged. On the wall, a message written in ash. "We never left." She began seeing things. Patients who weren't on the roster. Staff in outdated uniforms. her own face staring back from cracked mirrors, whispering secrets she never told anyone. Digging into old records, she found the truth. In 1976, an experimental therapy known as the Silence Protocol was tested here. Patients were locked in isolation and fed sensory deprivation hallucinogens. Dozens died, some vanished entirely, including a girl named Eleanor Grant. Her mother, Marla, descended into the sublevels where the experiments were conducted. She found a chamber of rusted machines, padded cells, and a journal in her mother's handwriting. They said we were broken. They made us hollow. But in silence, I found her. And now she finds me. As the journal ends, alarms blare, the power flickers. The patients are out, but they're not rioting. They are chanting. In unison, the silence is coming. One by one, staff disappear. Rooms fill with bloodless shadows. Marla hides in the therapy room, hallucinating Eleanor or something wearing Eleanor's face. You were always meant to return. The thing says, this place is not cursed. It is chosen. In her final act, Marla records a message, locks in the steel box, and seals in the foundation. Years later, developers uncover the ruins of Black Ridge. They find one intact room, and scrawled across every surface, listen to the silence. It wants a voice. Daniel Rourke arrived at Crescent Pine Sanitarium with a duffel bag and a letter. He wasn't a doctor, a nurse, or a patient. He was a journalist with a forgotten past, summoned by a handwritten note postmarked with no return address. They lied about what happened here. Come before it opens again. Midnight, November 3rd. The facility, sealed since 1988, had once been Pennsylvania's largest mental institution. After a scandal involving lobotomies and electroshock misuse, it had quietly shuttered. Now, plans were underway to turn it into a luxury spa. Daniel had no credentials, no invitation, but the night guard let him in without question. Someone's expecting you, he muttered. The corridors were a maze of rotting tile and rusted doors. Faint whispers echoed from nowhere. Daniel chalked it up to wind and nerves, until he saw the patient log. His name was in it. Admitted, October 29, 1988. Diagnosis, paranoid schizophrenia. Discharged, never. He'd never been here. He was only 4 years old then. Driven by fear and need for answers, Daniel sought the West Wing, the terminal ward where the worst cases were kept. It had been sealed since the final incident, the Halloween blackout of 1988. He pried open a broken door and descended into darkness. Flickering lights revealed rooms still set for therapy sessions. Dolls with stitched mouths sat in chairs. A mural stretched across the wall, showing faceless doctors standing over children. The whispers returned. They never let us leave. He watched us sleep. We remember you. Then came the recordings. Daniel found a reel-to-reel machine still running. It played therapy sessions. The voices weren't just patients. One of them was his mother. She had worked here as a psychiatrist, and she had recorded herself during experiments that were never meant to be public. One tape ended with her screaming. He knows Daniel wasn't born here. He was made here. Reality splintered. Daniel saw flashes of childhood erased. White rooms, ink blot tests, men with surgical masks. He followed the trail of whispers to the old hydrotherapy chamber, a room rumored to drown more minds than it cured. There, submerged in a tank, he saw his reflection twist, and beside it, another face, identical but smiling. A file in the chamber confirmed it. Daniel had a twin, one who had not survived, or maybe never left. He was the control. Daniel was the experiment. The whispers grew deafening. Figures emerged from the shadows. Patients, doctors, nurses, all long dead but frozen in the moment of their final scream. Welcome home, they said. Daniel fled, recording everything. But at the exit, the doors wouldn't open. The night guard was gone. The sanitarium was no longer abandoned. It was awake. When authorities found the building weeks later, it was empty. No sign of Daniel. No recordings. But in the renovated lobby, one word was carved in the marble. Remember,